Hello everybody, in this video I'm gonna discuss about the iPhone 14 Pro versus the S23 Plus. I feel we need to have a discussion regarding these two models because these two models are probably one of the most underrated feature spec for their respective companies. Like I believe that the flat display on the S23 Plus versus the compact form factor of iPhone 14 Pro should be considered in a comparison rather than considering flagships like iPhone 14 Pro Max, which are not ergonomic at all, and S23 Ultra, which have like curved edges and S Pen, which you might probably never even use. Let's be honest about it. So that's why I wanted to do a comparison between the S23 Plus and the iPhone 14 Pro. So, in terms of display, the S23 Plus comes with a 6.6-inch Full HD Plus display, which they call some which they call them as dynamic AMOLED display with a 120 Hz resolution, a peak brightness of 750 nits. Whereas the iPhone 14 Pro comes with a 6.1-inch LTPO OLED display with 1000 nits of typical brightness and 2000 nits of outdoor automatic or an HDR brightness. So in terms of display, you might think that the iPhone 14 Pro with a higher nit display is better than the S23 Plus. But I would argue that the S23 Plus display is equally good in comparison to the iPhone 14 Pro. In fact, me, someone who has used an iPhone, whenever I switch to a Samsung phone, their OLED displays are so well, I don't know what to say. They are so vibrant that it makes me want to have a Samsung calibrated display over the iPhone calibrated display. So even though in specs it seems that the iPhone 14 Pro has a better display with a better PPI, I would still prefer a Samsung display. But it's just me. But it is just me. So if you wanna, like, both displays are absolutely incredible, but for someone like me who has seen both the displays side by side, I would pick a Samsung display over the Apple display for the iPhone 14 Pro. And anyways, iPhone has the tendency of like throttling its display after a certain period of time, so I guess you might not even get full 2000 nits of brightness over harsh sunlight over a long period of time. So now let's talk about the battery size. The S23 Plus has a 4700 milliampere battery versus the iPhone 14 Pro, which has a 3200 milliampere battery. Personally, during the S22 era, the iPhone 14 Pro, despite having less battery optimization than the iPhone 13 lineup, provided a better battery experience than the S22 series. But this time around, I feel the S23 Plus will have a better battery life versus the iPhone 14 Pro. Don't get me wrong, the iPhone 14 Pro battery capacity and optimization is quite good. But if you specifically compare the iPhone 14 Pro versus the S23 Plus, I would tell you hands down the S23 Plus will have a better battery life than the iPhone 14 Pro. In fact, here's a hot take. I believe the S23 Plus will have a better battery than the S23 Ultra because it does not run on Quad HD display and it does not have an S Pen, which also seeps through the power of the S23 Ultra's 5000 milliampere battery. So that's just my take, but I honestly feel in battery S23 Plus will win. Now let's talk about the charging speed. Yeah. So S23 Plus takes around 1 hour to fully charge from 0 to 100%, and iPhone 14 Pro takes around 1 hour and 30 minutes to fully charge. Despite slower charging speeds, I don't think this is quite a big deal breaker because both the phones support wireless charging. So even if you're traveling in your car or some other place, you can just conveniently charge your phone while you're commuting or while you're in your office environment and other places. So I don't think charging speed is that important if you have a wireless charging support because you will keep on continuously charging your device. So overall, I feel that in terms of charging speed, S23 Plus is better than the iPhone, but in the in the long run, it doesn't really matter. Now let's talk about the updates policy. So S23 Plus, in S23 Plus, Samsung provides 4 years of Android updates and 5 years of security patches. Whereas in iPhone 14 Pro, I can guarantee you will get 5 years of operating system updates and at least 7 years of security patches updates. I'm not kidding you. The iPhone 6, which was launched in 2014, still to this day gets security patches. That's insane. So yeah, overall I feel that in terms of updates, you are rest assured with both the brands. They have a good track record, especially Samsung. For the past 3 years, their updates are being pushing like crazy, even better than Google. So yeah, in terms of updates, you should have no problem with these two manufacturers. Now let's talk about the Wi-Fi and cellular reception. Honestly, you will have no problems with both of them as they both use Qualcomm modems for the Wi-Fi and cellular network. In terms of 5G, I had no issues in getting 5G reception in my iPhone 13. So I guess the antennas will be better and you will have no issues in those S23 Plus as well as iPhone 14 Pro models as well. So let's talk about the cameras. The S23 Plus comes with a 50 megapixel wide sensor, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and 10 megapixel telephoto, whereas the iPhone 14 Pro comes with 48 wide sensor, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and 12 megapixel telephoto lenses. Honestly, I feel that the ultra wide lenses on all the phones, whether it be a budget phone or a flagship phone, is quite honestly not that great. In terms of telephoto, I will tell you one thing that iPhone captures natural DSLR like telephoto pictures, whereas Samsung has accurate cutouts. So it will actually make you look like someone who has been like Photoshop to have an edit around the cutout to look like you are in the HDR DSLR type photo. But honestly, I would prefer the telephoto performance of an iPhone in good lighting conditions. Of course, when we talk about bad lighting or poor lighting conditions, both the phones do a pretty okay job in terms of telephoto and even ultra wide lenses. Now, the most commonly used lens 50 megapixel and 48 megapixel. I would recommend you guys don't use the pro modes, even though these phones are quite expensive and you should use them. But at that point, it's just better to just down sample size it to like 12 megapixels for both the sensors. It's not going to be a big deal and it will eat a lot into your storage. So I would just recommend you to use it in the default settings. So in terms of pictures, I have observed that Samsung devices have a good tendency of maintaining accurate skin colors with slight boost. So it gives your picture a very appealing look, whereas iPhone goes towards quite natural but sometimes quite yellowish and brownish hue over your face. I sometimes don't like the iPhone's picture quality because it makes me look like I had some sort of a disease. Sometimes it has that tendency to, since I'm someone who has a brown skin color, it makes me look as if I had jaundice or something. But in terms of Samsung's rear camera, I have always observed that it has the tendency of out of like it doesn't focus really well. So sometimes whenever I click a picture and just shake, which is also called Samsung's flagship ultra shutter lag, the picture appears to be not in focus. So yeah, that's the two issues that I found in these phones. And also iPhone is terrible, like honestly terrible, the worst phone I have ever seen in terms of HDR performance. I would think OnePlus is the worst, followed by iPhone, because I have used OnePlus's HDR performance before the OnePlus 11, by the way. Now OnePlus HDR is quite impressive, but before the OnePlus 11, OnePlus devices had terrible HDR, followed by iPhone. But now that they have improved their HDR performance on the OnePlus 11, iPhone has the worst HDR. So yeah, in terms of photography, of course. Yeah. In terms of selfie, they are both quite good. Still, iPhone has the tendency to add a brownish yellow hue to your skin color, which will make someone of a dark skin look more dark and someone with yellow skin look like you had jaundice or something. But Samsung's overall selfie camera is better than the iPhone. That's is something that I will give credit to Samsung for. In terms of video, I still feel iPhone has the best video. That's why I'm recording this video on my iPhone 30. But honestly, it doesn't even matter if you are someone like who will use just one phone. It's not going to be a big deal breaker. It's just like I love iPhone's video. They are one of the best in the industry. So yeah, iPhone's video is still unbeatable. Even if Samsung provides 8K at 30 FPS, I still prefer iPhone's processing to the video and making the movements in the videography as smooth as possible rather than Android's jittery uh, processing motion across the video. Yeah. So that's all about the cameras. Now let's talk about some of the things that I generally observe in Android and iPhones, or specifically in Samsung phones. Samsung phones have good customization options through good lock and through basic general setting panel. It's quite impressive what you can do with your S23 Plus. It's quite impressive. iPhone has improved on it. Their lock screen customization is one of the best. I would argue it is better than Samsung, but they still have to improve upon some things. Like I still cannot imagine why they don't have a proper implementation of an app drawer. Why can't I place apps anywhere on the home screen? That's quite crazy. I just hope Apple focuses on these two areas and just improves upon it. And there is one more thing that I have observed in iPhone in comparison to Android. Whenever I pull up a camera, whatever I see in the YouTube, like through the YouTube picture-in-picture mode, it just gets paused. But whenever I watch something on YouTube in PIP mode and I open the camera app, the video keeps on running. So this is something where the iPhone has to intelligently adapt and learn from Android devices. But overall, I just feel that yeah, customization is actually a tie. But iPhone should actually look into implementing a better app library, or what I call is like menu options for application displays like Android. And they should allow us to place our icons anywhere on the home screen. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Next thing is S23 Plus has USB-C and iPhone 14 Pro has a stupid lightning port. But I hope Apple implements a USB-C and that would solve this problem. But right now, USB-C is a major win for the S23 Plus over the iPhone. In Android, you can do side loading, and in iPhone, you cannot. Yeah, that's something that you got to take care. And you can, like, I don't recommend doing this. You can, like, I'm not gonna say anything. Now you know what side loading means and what you can do with it. Now I will talk about a few cons. As I have mentioned, like the lightning port on the iPhone. Oh, one more one more pro that I want to talk about the iPhone is that they have a MagSafe. MagSafe is incredible. Like I love MagSafe. It's a standard. It has become such a big standard. Whenever I drive my car, I just use a MagSafe wireless puck to magnetize my phone on this car dashboard. But in Samsung we don't have that feature. Even though I use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in my car, it doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, I would actually prefer or hope Samsung implements some sort of magnet system like iPhone in order to support magnetic charging. Yeah, that's quite useful, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, the cons is that whenever I do, so let's talk about the cons for S23 Plus. Whenever I do a payment, right, through Samsung's Pay or Google Pay in my Samsung phone, it stutters a lot. Like the animation you can see, like the phone is struggling. There is no way that it should do that because I used to do Android payments wirelessly through Google Pay through my Pixel and my OnePlus, and they never used to stutter like that. So that is something that Samsung has to improve upon. In terms of iPhone, I have mentioned one is the con is the lightning port and bad HDR in photographies. Like whenever there is a bright subject behind the in the background, iPhone just loses it and just goes crazy wonka about it. Like it's like yeah, so that's all. And the last thing I want to talk about is the price and storage configurations. So the S23 Plus comes with 8 256 base. That's incredible, Samsung, for $999, and iPhone 14 Pro comes with 8 128 storage configurations for $1,000. Now, in terms of raw value, I would still, someone like me who is platform agnostic, will prefer the S23 Plus over the iPhone 14 Pro. But I would tell you one thing, you will never go wrong with any of these two phones. If you're someone who values customization and is okay while the phone lacks while doing payment, you should go with Samsung because you will get all the features: USB-C, side loading, amazing camera, good update policy, good battery, good display. Yeah, that overall. In iPhone 14 Pro, it is something that is known as Apple tax. So the base model is quite okay if you're someone who doesn't use your phone that much, but I would still recommend you to go for a 256 GB model at the minimum. And the battery overall on the iPhone is also pretty good, not as better as Samsung's. The charging is quite slower, but overall, if you are gonna just buy one of these two devices, you will not notice the cons of the other device. The only con I would say for the iPhone is the terrible lightning port and the bad HDR, yeah, in photographies. So yeah, I hope these two companies will take feedback on this. And yeah, that's all for this video. So thank you so much for watching this video. I just wanted to make a quick comparison between these two models because people either cover the Ultra model or the Pro Max model. Nobody's covering the mid range, like the middle of the ground models like the S23 Plus and the iPhone 14 Pro. So yeah, okay, that's all in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Do like, share and subscribe, and I will see you later. Goodbye.